Hey there, I'm Randy Zimnock, and we are in the last of the three-part series of financial hacks when you, the listing agent, are working with a seller that has a property that needs a lot of work and it has to sell to a cash buyer. However, your seller is stubborn and wants a certain number, and your buyer is just not willing to get up to that number. How do we bridge that gap? Well, I'm going to tell you in this part 3. So in this situation, we have a seller that has a property that needs a lot of work again, and they need to sell to an investor cash buyer. And you, the listing agent, are trying to put this deal together. But in this situation, the seller needs all the funds now. So the closing actually has to happen where the funds fully transfer to the seller from the buyer based on their agreed upon price. However, maybe you're off, right? Like I said, by a few grand. Here is a profit share opportunity that I would recommend to try and discuss with both parties. So the seller here needs the funding, as we talked about. They need the money now, right? And the buyer is not quite willing to go up to that number because in most cases that would be a case if they think maybe the after repair value is a little hard to determine and pinpoint exactly. So they're being a little bit more careful and lowering their offer. So one way of hedging that risk and still netting or getting more money for the client, the seller in the situation, if you're the listing agent for the seller, is to maybe propose a profit share to the investor buyer. And what that would really mean is, pretty simply, the investor buyer buys a house for X amount that both parties agree upon. Then the investor rehabs the property, sells the property for a higher amount, of course. And then after closing costs and all that, there's money left that they're trying to make. Let's say it's 80 grand. They're trying to make $80,000 profit in their best case scenario. Well, one thing that we could consider here, if you're the listing agent working with that cash buyer, is having the cash buyer offer a percentage, a profit share of that 80,000. So let's say they are willing to offer 20% of the 80,000 to the seller when the property sells and they close the books. What would that amount be in that situation? Well, it's an additional $16,000 to the seller. So 20% of 80,000 is 16,000. Guess what? That's the additional 16,000 the seller will get that they would never be able to get. Now, that is a little bit more riskier in terms of there's no guarantees, right? Because the investor buyer might mess up if they don't have a good track record. You can't control what they do because the seller is not really in their business, right? So there's definitely more risk involved. But if you're working with a company that's been doing investing for a long time and they have a good track record, there's a pretty good chance that that will actually work out. Maybe it won't be 80, maybe it's going to be 60, right? However, still there's a potential for your client, the seller here, if you're the listing agent, to make more money that they otherwise would have not made. And that's how you create a win-win. Analyzing a property before you buy it is obviously very important. However, what I find that most people just do it wrong. And I know that alone, one mistake could cost you tens and thousands of dollars. It could literally cost you your business. And I don't want that to happen to you. So I created a step-by-step property analysis guide sheet to walk you through exactly what to look for to make sure your deal that you're looking at is worth buying. To get the property analysis guide sheet, just go to randyzimnock.com.